thokozani bantu. My name is Nomi, and today I'm sitting with my ancestral brother, Mkhulu Nyoniyezulu. And I think I just wanted to get a perspective from her view on spirituality and healing, and just, I don't know, someone else's view, guys, that's close to me who might have gone through a similar journey to me and was housed where I was housed and birthed where I was birthed. So literally, Nyoni is like the only other person I know who has the same gobela as me in that family tree, I think, besides my sister. And I think it's a nice view to have because at least she's more recently become a healer. And I just want to know her perspective. So just to give you guys the background, Ukoko, she came, I think it was about, let's say, close to 2 years ago. She did her journey and then she actually moved overseas. And I think this is really what sparked the interest for me because, you know, sometimes we think Uguti, when we become healers, we are limited to a box or we limited to doing healing in like a certain country. And I think, like for me, guys, it's never really been real that I could move ne kwamazami or I could move with my work, because at some point my mind was like, oh, this is actually the one thing that's going to have me stuck. So I think, Thokozani Mkhulu,
Thokoza Baba.
how are you?
I'm well, thanks. And you?
I'm good, thank you. I think maybe you could give us just a brief background of you and like a little bit about your journey. You could even just tell us, Uti, when did you know, Uti, at some point you're going to go down the spiritual path, and especially as a traditional healer and now maybe next level healer. Yeah.
Thokozani bantu abadala. Mkhulu Nyoniyezulu. I am a brand and communications strategist by profession, and I'm a traditional healer by calling that has been initiated in the institution ubungoma. And I'm also a sound sonic healer, what people would call a sound therapist.
That's beautiful.
Yes, and I'm also the founder of Nico Wellness Refinery. So with me, you asked if when did I know that it was time for me to initiate, or this is the path that...
Even just the whole path, because, you know, like I think people struggle with being called and they think there's a straight line to how you know. So maybe start from how did you know you were even gifted, let alone that utotwas.
Yes. So the funny thing is that with me, I think growing up, I've always known that there's something, but I just didn't know what it was. And I think as a child, I could not also articulate what it was, right? And I remember my mom used to say whenever we'd have people over at the house, or if we have like an event at the house or something, my mom was like, "You're such a strange child. Like when people are around, you know, you go into your shell, and when people are not here, right? You everywhere you play with it, you know, you run around, you do all sorts of things." And I think it was later on in life that it started making sense to say, I guess, dalang hamba nabantu abadala. So, you know, when I'm around people, because also as a child, you can't regulate things and, you know, articulate certain things that you are seeing. So I think from that perspective, I can say I've always known. But then growing up, I would have dreams. I would see things. I would, you know, listen. I'm a person that always listens to my gut. So I initially thought that it was normal.
Really?
Yeah, like I thought it was normal. Like I even would even say to people, like, didn't you know that this was going to happen? Like I just thought that it was normal. And as I grew older, then I realized, well, no, it's actually not normal. Like that, it's not normal that you are
to have foresight.
Yes, to have foresight.
Yeah.
You know, it's not normal that you knew not to go this way, but to go that way, or it's not normal for you to know that this person was going to go through this thing.
Wow.
So I found it interesting, and I was like, okay. And I remember this one time I had a chat with a friend of mine, and she was like, you know what, I think I know just the person that you can see, because that she had already initiated. And she's like, you know what, I think there's a specific person that you must see and you must talk to, because I think this person is more like you and you would probably understand each other. So I was like, okay, fine. So she linked me up with this other person and I went to go see them. And I remember my first thoughts were, oh, this person doesn't seem like a sangoma, because I had a different thought. I was expecting someone in Leeds. I was expecting in Dumba, you know. And I literally walked into their study and there were like books all over the place. And I was like, okay, now I know I'm home. And they just looked, no beads, no anything or whatever. And then we started talking. And I then realized that session on its own was a consultation, but not in so many ways, you know. Because Benga and Matambo were just talking and stuff. And there's a lot of things that came up that then helped me to move forward, you know. So I think from that consultation, then I started naming Lungisis in thokozani and doing certain things that I needed to do to get me to another point. So to cut the long story short, I think then I went through this journey of discovery, this journey of awakening. At some point, I mean, I started a whole gifting shop where I was selling sage and crystals. And that stuff didn't make sense to me because I'm like, okay,
why am I doing
why am I doing this? You know? So, then I've always been interested in like ways of healing or alternative ways of healing and so forth. And as time went on, then there was a time where I knew, because then it was said to me in my dreams by my ancestors. They actually showed me, this is where you need to go and this is what's going to happen. Yeah, it was weird because, first of all, when I actually went to go, when I found my Kobela, I hadn't met my Kobela. It was through a friend that I was telling that, you know, I have this thing and I'm told that I need to go initiate. But I don't even know where to initiate because I come from a Christian family and my family has never really, or they don't have any healers that I know. So then this friend of mine then said to me, no, there is someone else that I work with.
Me?
Yeah, it was you. And this person, I went to go see the Govela for some other stuff. And I think this would be the perfect person for you to go consult with. So then I said to her, oh, okay, that's interesting. All right, why not? So she gives me the number and then I call Ubaba, Ukok. So then I call her and she's like, no, you can come see me on Monday, whatnot. I'm like, okay, fine. Mind you, I've never met her. So then I think the weekend before I went to go see her, then I have a dream. And literally in the dream, I'm being shown this woman. And for some reason, I knew it was her, the person that I'm supposed to be seeing on Monday. They show me this this lady. I'm like, okay, wow. And then I get into Indumba, or what looked like Indumba in the dream. And there she was washing my hands. And even how I went into Indumba, I later then found out that that's the same way that I would have gone into the Indumba as an initiate. So all these things happen in the dream. And I'm like, okay, this is so strange. So now I'm looking forward to this.
Consultation with this lady.
Because I'm like, okay, I want to see what's going to happen. So Monday I go to her house. I get there. I'm being welcomed by the initiates, and then they walk me into the Ndumba. As they're getting into the Ndumba,
you see flashbacks. Oh my God.
Of it's exactly how it was in the dream. And I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. So I still don't tell anyone. So I get into the Ndumba. They do their thing, and then they call Ukoko, you know, to come through. And she also, Uyang Bula, and, you know, certain things come up. So it does come up in the session that I need to initiate. But now the funny thing is that when I went into the Ndumba is exactly how I saw it in my dream, you know, and even where she was washing my hands, it's exactly the same. So I think I knew then that this is the place where I need to get initiated, because I've always said to my ancestors, without, they need to show me exactly where to go. And without that, I'm not leaving my house, basically. So they need to tell me where to go. And also I had three things that I wanted and I asked for, which is I wanted someone who is very old. I don't know why I wanted someone who's very old. Don't ask me. And then I want someone that only initiates women. And especially well, obviously, if they initiate women, I'll only be initiated with women, you know? So I got exactly that. I got an old woman. I was initiated with just women epeshweni, and this was someone at the time, Begatwasisa, only woman.
Yeah.
Which was strange.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
not strange. It's mostly the females that are gifted candy. I don't know how, but or maybe because there's more of us actually in reality.
Yeah.
And then how was that experience? Because I feel like firstly there was like such a straight line of communication for you and being sent somewhere, which most people don't get, right? Most people get the havoc. But like the actual experience of training then, how was that?
Training for me was quite interesting. So I think when I went in initially, because I think I actually did even give you a call.
Yeah.
I think then I didn't know when I was going to go in.
Yes.
But like I called you and I was like, oh my God, I feel like this is the time. And one thing that you said, I don't even know if you remember, but you were like, just go in there with a childlike mind and forget everything else you know and go in there to learn. So I think Mangene Epiphany, I took that with me and I was like, you know what, forget everything you know, forget everything. This is now a place that you are going into. This is now a person that's going to hold space for you, be able to heal and to be able to discover what it is that you need to discover. So in order for you to do that, then you have to like let go of everything else and just do it. So the experience for me, Epeshweni, was quite interesting. I mean, I don't think Ipesho is an easy thing, you know, because you are taken away, or rather you take yourself out of society and you literally just go into the space where you just need to let go and just let this process take place. So, which I did. And I think for me, there is so much that I've learned. And I think from Ipesho alone, I started to appreciate ubungoma and what it means, you know, and the depth of it.
Yes.
Because it's things that I realized we don't get to see that. You know?
And what about like how, because I know like the other day I was thinking about it, we had a ceremony. And I always look at you guys and I feel like, oh my gosh, they have it so easy. You know, and like I can't hold back, but even sometimes say it. But then when I'm alone, I sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, do they take offense to that? The fact that everyone that's been on a journey before them would probably say it was easy. Do you think that it is easy, or do you just think that the difficulties are different?
I honestly, you know, with journeys, I always say that journeys are different, you know, and some people, I think the older ones would look at us, the young ones, and they'll be like, oh my God, you guys have it so easy. But in actual fact, I don't think we've had it easy. I think also, most especially, you learn to, you know, take things for what they are, and you also learn to not complain, because some of the things that you go through at Petreni are things that are supposed to get you to a certain point, and there are things that you need to work on as a person, and they come across obviously as challenges. So I don't think that there's anyone out there that goes to initiate and has it easy. I think everyone has their own little thing that they go through. And I'll even give you an example, like a Petreni, you know, because I don't talk much about my journey and where I come from and the stuff that I went through. You'll find that you sit there and then, you know, you'll have someone else that talks about this ingulo that they had and this is how they experienced ingulo. And because the other person doesn't necessarily say, Nami, I went through this and this and this, then the assumption is that ingulo yami was greater than everyone else, which is not the case, because I think we all sikula differently. So omunye angakula physically, omunye angakula emotionally, you know, because our lessons are different. And
that's true, actually. I think that for me has been sort of, now as an outsider looking in, it's been my greatest learning, actually, because I'll have initiates who a lot of the issues maybe are emotional. And I noticed that I'm not very emotional. A lot of my illness was physical. And so I actually resonate better with people who had physical ailments because I always know what to do for them.
Oh, yes.
You know, but then when someone comes and it's an emotional issue, I literally become blank, like, oh my gosh, like what do I do now? Like, I'm not a hugger. I'm not going to hug you.
Which is also a challenge then to you. Right?
I think it's a challenge, but remember, for us, it's like, I don't know if people know this, but touch is not something that healers do a lot.
Yes.
Because it actually activates something in you.
Yes.
So we've been taught over the years not to touch people. So hugs and stuff like that, it's like extra work or extra energy. And you realize, it's, oh my gosh, like I cannot can. I don't know how to can when it comes to emotion.
Yes.
But it's like funny enough, on an evolution perspective, it's something that you see more with this group than I saw with other people, you know, where the ailments with us were more physical, right? But now the ailments are actually more emotional. And so it's almost like, I mean, for me, it's different because at least my sister's a healer.
Yeah.
So I understand it from that perspective. Guti, maybe they knew Guti, oh, Lord, she's not going to cope with the emotional stuff. So we'll have her sister help her. But in general, being in corny, because I'm always like, when people cry, I freeze. You know, even if I'm emotional, you can see, Guti, I hold like the tears in all the time because I'm just not an emotional person. So when I cry, I ask myself, Guti, why are you doing that? You know?
Yes,
But
I know what you mean.
that's so interesting. And then how did you then, because obviously Sakpelezel and whatever, and you went home, but then immediately after you sort of had to leave as well. And I just want to know, Guti, just that adjustment, how did you do that? Because a lot of us, we sort of go home and we genuinely finding ourselves again.
Yeah.
So when are you just up and you left? So did you find yourself?
Yeah, I had to. I didn't have a choice. So the funny thing is, like you said, I mean, you guys brought me home, and then literally, I think a month later, not even, or maybe even 3 weeks later, then I had to move to Europe, you know, which is a totally different, you know, environment from this, you know. So for me, it was a bit of a challenge, but I was like, you know what, I'm actually just going to do this and we'll see what happens. Because also I believe everything that happens, it happens for a reason, you know, and you are put at a certain place at a specific time for a reason. And it's only now that I realize why I had to move to Europe, because also that also came up, or it came with other things that I never imagined, you know. One thing I've always known, that Idlos Lami wants me to work on a global level, you know, not even just here in South Africa. But for me, I never really saw it happen. I was just like, I don't understand. What do you mean? You know, and ubungoma, how do I then practice when I'm that side? So it was only when I was that side that then now I'm back. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What am I doing here? And the one time I even asked, I'm like, okay, so what do you guys want me to do? You know, and it was just like, just do you.
Yes.
Just do what you keep doing and you'll be fine. And I think also when I was that side, that was when I was exposed to the sound healing.
Yes.
Because with sound, I've always known that sound does something to me. You know, even Iskupo, I think we all know as healers that it activates something.
Yes, it does.
So when I went that side, this was when then I started reading up on sound healing and just like what it means and what it does to your body. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to enroll myself for sound healing, because I think this is a way that Idlozilani would want me to work, because I know even before Ipetro, whenever I would listen to music or sound, it would do something to me, you know. So then I enrolled myself. I found a school. I enrolled myself for sound therapy. And yeah, fast forward to now, I'm a now qualified sound healer. And that's one of the things that I actually use within my practice to heal people. So when I look back, I'm like, there's actually a reason why I had to go.
So is it like an extension of your initiation, or what would you call it?
Definitely an extension. And the funny thing is, I was actually even saying to my sound mentor, I was saying to her, you know, ebungomeni, I felt like I learned so many practical things to a point where even the sound healing group that I was being, I wouldn't say initiated with, but that I was being taught with. There are certain things that for me were normal. Like if you're talking about a third eye, talking about energy, how to connect with people. Those things I already knew. So for me, it wasn't an issue. And he would actually even sometimes ask me to explain or whatever, you know. So I even said to her, I feel like I did my practical first and then now I'm doing my theory. Whereas a lot of the times you'll do your theory and then your practical first. So with me, it was more practical because especially you don't have time to be asking this. Like when you work, and it's only then now I started appreciating the fact that, you know, most in Dundeli, you allow your people to work. Whereas if Ukoko is going to prescribe to you this, then you will never know. So you do first, and then afterwards, when the person comes back and they're healed, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think that's the other thing that I've been thinking, because I also watch people when they are training, and I almost feel like when they do it, they don't get why like the pace is so quick, and I don't think they understand the learning in all of that until like they are literally like gone, and this thing is like happening. Did you feel like that as well? Because I'm like, I just watch now and I'm like, yo, Kubangathi, I don't know if you bomb that lens when you suddenly have to do everything alone. And then you're like, wait, how do I do it? But you were doing it all along.
Yes. Yeah. It becomes very difficult. So for me, that it was even more difficult because remember, now I can't call Ubaba and say, Baba, how do I do 1, 2, 3? Because now I'm even in another country. So Ubaba Wami has never even had the experience that I'm having of now having to heal a person that's of like different environment, different everything in another country. So yes, there are certain things that I would obviously, you know, call her about and whatnot. But Kone izinto I couldn't even take with me. So when I was that side, they would actually even show me, would you know, instead of using this, you can find this. You know, find the botanical name of that herb lapaya and then check to see what's in that family that you can use here.
Wow, that's so interesting. So I think obviously I know, but you also do tarot. So what is then the connection between the bones, the tarot, and the sound healing for you?
So the tarot bit is, it's actually quite interesting how it started. I wanted to do tarot before I went in a pishling.
Nice.
I've always loved tarot, and I never understood why I like tarot. And I remember there's a friend of mine who is also a healer, and she's into tarot. She does tarot. And she does, like, I mean, she has a course, tarot. And she always used to say to me, no, man, you must do this. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I need to first do the other stuff first, you know, the traditional stuff first before I can even get into Itero, you know. So I parked that, and my ancestors were very clear. They were like, Ngene Peshweni, do things the way that you are supposed to do them. And once you are done with that, then you can
Explore
the other stuff and explore.
Have you ever asked them why? Like the why of why they still wanted you to go to the traditional route?
So for me, I did. And what came through was that, remember, Mongene Peshweni, Uyolanda Ubukosi Bagini, and you are bringing dignity back into your family. So for them, yes, we can see that you're doing 1, 2, 3. We are happy with it. But Kolumuntu Melaland Kosi La family. And if you look at my family and my lineage, like I don't know anyone Otwasine that I can point out to that, you know, in my lifetime. So I think it was very important because you hear all these stories about your grandmother was supposed to be this one was supposed to be that, or whatever. So when I inquired, this is what they said to me. They say, no, Yolanda Ukosi Bakini, and you are bringing dignity back into the family so that that's even can start happening.
Actually. Yeah. Yo, that's scary. So I think I'm asking this because I always ask people, especially like I'll have people obviously that I sit with who, Bona, they just feel good to Utasa, maybe it's not for them or whatever, right? And then there's those who they know ukuthi maybe akufanelanga ukuthi bathwase. But I think I'm trying to get to, because I love ubungoma, like, and it's something that I realize that as I grow, I fall in love with the processes they in. Like, there's always a different aspect that I fall in love with. But when you say dignity, I just want to know, have you ever tried to unpack that further for yourself? Ukuthi, why would they call it that and not something else? Because I mean, you're still doing the work. So what is the difference? Like yini that's here, that's not in all these other things.
To be honest, I mean, I think it's still a question in my head.
Yeah.
And I've learned that also, as you know, like they'll answer in their own time when they're ready to answer. But having said that, in as much as I do sound healing and as much as I do tarot, I still have a deep love for ubungoma. And that's why I still practice ubungoma to a point where if someone comes into the ndumba, I will use my bones and then someone will call me for a consultation and I know, this one is for tarot, you know. But I think it's who we are, you know, and it goes in as far as looking at the word ubungoma, you know, what it is, and you know the fact that we are talking drums, we are talking dance, we are talking music, we are talking. So it's deeper than just ubungoma and just ukuhlola umuntu ngamathambo nani, you know. So for me, in as much as I've always wanted to do tarot, now my ancestors are like, okay, now you can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it took me a while because I was still caught up on ubungoma. Because when I went to Petroni, I fell in love with it so much that even when I came out, then now I'm forgetting it. Oh, actually, I wanted to do this. Now they're giving me permission and they're saying,
yes,
thank you,
what you want.
now you can do and explore, you know. And it took me a while. And then ultimately, then, well, I guess I moved overseas and I was like, okay, well, I guess, you know, I'll try all these different ways out so that Nami, I can diversify myself so that I'm able to work that side.
Wow, that's so interesting. So I think the next thing I want to ask you is, how do we then know like what's authentic and what's not now? Because I feel like there is that sense with a lot of people actually where it's like, lona leading no, you know, later this, later that. So like how do we then know what is real and what's not? And I'm asking this from like a more fresh perspective that's not looking at like how we will look at this one stands like this, sits like this, or like how my Gogo hates when we don't wear pants. Like there's certain things that you're just like, yo, I think I was telling you, Hori, the other day I went for a media interview and I came back and she was like, I don't like your dress. And I'm like, it's too late. I come from there. She was like, you don't represent me, if you look like this. And I was like, yo, this lady, I don't know. When it comes to me, she's not going to change, you know, which I like. But you know, there is that element that people have lava because they do things differently, then they're not real.
Yeah. You know, I've always said, Guti, as a person, you can just only be yourself. That's the only way to be authentic. And it's funny that you're saying this because I was having a conversation with someone the other day and they were like, oh, you know, when I came to consult, I expected someone else because this is a person that I don't know and they were referring. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So what were you expecting? And they're like, no, I was expecting someone in beads. I was expecting this big figure and whatnot, you know? And I was like, oh, okay. So after this consultation, did you get what you needed to get? And they're like, yeah, I even got more, you know? So I think, for me personally, in this journey, I've had to learn that my ancestors chose me for a reason, right? And over and above that, they're not trying to have me be someone that I'm not. Because if I cannot live in my body and be happy and be the person that I want to be, then I'm contradicting, you know, that whole thing about being authentic. So in as much as, yes, umngoma, and yes, I love being umngoma, but I'm also still this person that lives in this body, you know? So I think the whole debate about, you know, these new age sangoma and, you know, the old sangomas, whatever. I just think that, look, I mean, you can only be yourself. You can only do what you need to do. And the people that need to find you will find you. So you don't necessarily need to be palatable to everyone. Like, you just need to be authentic and to be yourself, because then now there's no point in me being someone else. And then Nami, I lose myself in the whole thing.
Yeah, that's so true. So I want to ask a counter question that's not related to this. Do you then think that the fact that you were born in this particular impande, it says anything to your genetic like history or to your genetic disposition. I don't know why they want me to ask this.
I feel like I was born into this Mpande because I needed to be born into this Mpande. And I think the more I spend time with Mpande Ami, the more I realize that we are related. You know, there are conversations that I will have with people. I mean, the one time I was having a conversation with Ubap Mabasi, and she was telling me about, you know, this triangle, whatnot, geometry. And the funny thing, I'm like, oh my God, this is so strange because I was looking at this earlier, you know, and what she was showing me was confirmation of what my people were trying to say because I was looking for that specific thing. So I do feel like we are connected somehow. I do feel like there are conversations that I will have with even some of my siblings or like even everyone. And I'm just like,
sure. I think with the Mpande thing, I don't know, I was explaining to someone, Uguti, for me, because I don't believe in like coincidences. Normally when someone comes in, I wouldn't also know how to explain a lot of the genetics, right? So I do sit with them to find out their surnames and whatever, just because I feel like for me, it's made a lot of sense, Uguti, because we're not Tonga, right?
yes.
So it gets funny for me. Uguti, how did we get into this group? I don't know if I think the other day I was even telling you, Uguti, so Gokma Lepsugu is my Gobela's Gobela, right? I was asking her this, Uguti, how did we then get to these Tonga people and do all of these Tonga rituals or whatever? And she didn't give me like a real answer, you know, but it's something that I always wonder about, especially with Umdao, you know, because for me it's like you can tell with even the sound, the rhythm of this thing is completely different to the Nguni aspect of us, you know. So I always ask people these questions just to know, Guti, what do you really think is the reason? But then I think with you, it's a bit different because already Maupega itagazelo zethu.
Yes.
There is a sense of the bird life and whatever. So it makes sense from that perspective.
But I'm going to tell you something interesting. So, one of your kids, one of them Mkhulus, actually shares a name and surname with my husband.
Really?
Yeah.
Which Mkhulu?
Mkhulu Neo.
Oh.
The Ndawo.
Wow.
Yeah. And I found out recently, and I was taken aback, like when he told me. I was like, oh my God, actually, I never actually
I also
realized.
didn't notice.
And for me, what's also interesting is that I am married into a Tsonga family.
Yes.
So a lot of these things are now starting to make
But
sense.
you do know that our ancestral grandmother, Yena Utwasite, her husband's ancestors.
Yes.
Not
she actually told me, yes.
Not hers. And I was like, what? So I know also that happens. It's just that I didn't know Wuti. It's like a common thing. Yeah, but also when Gogo explained it to me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because it means then you've been fully accepted. You can't really run away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like locked in there.
Sure. So I think I should ask Uguti then, what is the next phase for you, or what should people then expect from your work?
Yeah. I think for me, what I'm currently working on now is this Nico Wellness Refinery. So Nico Wellness Refinery is just, something that's going to house a lot of the work that I do. So from my work as umngoma to my work as a sonic healer, to my work as a writer as well, because I do write. So it's going to house all of that. The sound baths obviously are going to be happening. You're going to be seeing more of that, where I'll do maybe 2 a month, even, with a group.
Yeah.
And then I'll continue doing the work. But what I find interesting also is that the sound healing is also going into, it works together with the what I do, Mobungo. A person will come through and I will know instantly that this one, you're not supposed to do 1, 2, 3, but this is what they need.
That's beautiful.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing, like, I'm finding as I grow that my work continues to change, and I'm realizing with actually there's so many aspects that one person could focus on in the work. So like, I wasn't musically inclined, Mina, ne? Because I think I always explain it to people as Miss Gita, I really didn't get it. It's like it's always been the one irritation in my life. Like, I love reading people, I love sitting down in consultations with them, but I'm like two left foot. Nje. Ne. So, Ugu Gita is not for me. But it's like how the older I grow, the more the song means something to me, and the more I resonate with the song. So that's why now I'm more conscious of like, you guys need to sing these songs properly, man. And I'm realizing, Guti, as you grow, certain things also grow in you. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
So I think the sound healing part for me is cool because then it means, Guti, in healing, we are so focused on that I need to throw bones and I need to see information, but you could literally just use sound. Like on a certain day, and that's all that a person really needed from you. And I think for me, this conversation is teaching me that, Uguti, maybe then the lesson for all of us, especially those who are interested in healing, is to go deeper into it and understand the different like facets of it, because your calling could be in the thing. But because you're not looking into it, you're looking around it almost. It doesn't ever really sit with you and make sense, Uti. Like, why this and not anything else, maybe, and I think sound does balance us a lot. And as African people, I don't know if they know, but that's how we got healed through so many of our pain, through so much of our struggle, So it would make sense that even that gift of sound healing is passed down to someone, because then it means that your ancestors are intentional in healing actually generational trauma, generational pain. It's not like a mistake or anything, but I'm like, oof, I'm even getting goosebumps talking about this because I'm realizing, Guti, it's like I always tell people, Guti, the reason they don't find the core of their work is because they're not listening. They want it to look like a certain way or whatever. And then you realize later, Guti, maybe the thing, it's right in front of you, but are we born because you're looking for
else.
Yes, or you want yours to look like Eyaga Kokonomi or Eyaga Ban or Eyaga Bani, but now when yours is there confronting you, you're not seeing it because you're missing the whole thing.
Yes. And I think part of me moving to Europe and learning sound and learning terror and learning I feel like the reason why I had to do that, it opened me up to so many things. And one of the things being the sound healing, because I even look at the way or the stuff that I use for sound healing. I mean, there are certain instruments that you use, but like with me, I would actually even dream or I would be shown which instruments to use. And most of those instruments that I'm being shown, these are indigenous African instruments that we used to use.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So it's a combination of that. It's a combination of indigenous African instruments that we used to use. And even within the wellness refinery, there are certain things like where this is ancestral healing, this is chakra healing, this is this is that. So you actually even learn that, no, this was actually not by mistake. I mean, if I'm being shown uhadi, I didn't even know what it was until I started researching. And I found that uhadi is something that, the Xhosa people used to use back in the day. And you realize that actually it's not by coincidence why I'm being shown a kudu horn. Like, and I remember I thought to myself, how am I going to find a kudu horn? Where am I going to find it? So I mean, it's just beautiful how, as people, we can look at ancient ways in order for us to heal ourselves in the now.
I'm going to ask a completely different question. Do you think that the reason that witchcraft is more highlighted in our work is because a lot of the people that practice it might not know the truth about their true gift?
Partly that, yes, I do agree. I think if they knew their greatness and they knew who they are as umungoma and what it means, it would be a different story. But over and above that, it's interesting that you should ask this question, because I was thinking about it a lot. I think a week ago, and I was like, it's so funny how when, colonization did so many things to us. And even when you talk about ubungoma, this is why someone would think that isangoma does witchcraft. But it's because we don't understand. Kona isangoma, there's inyanga, there's umthakathi. But islungu, guys, it's not for us.
It's
because
not, yeah.
if you look at the word witchcraft, witchcraft was what was used to describe whether we nyanga, whether we sangoma, whether umthakathi. You understand? So there isn't a word within islungu where you can say isangoma, unless if you want to say nguni shaman or whatever. But I think even that is flawed. I think it's more futhi how things were positioned because of whatever reasons and underhanded reasons that they had or whatever. But yeah, I just think that people don't understand that you have umngoma, you have inyanga, you have umprofit, you have this, you have that. So it's all under one belt, which is witchcraft. And I think once we start understanding those things, then we would get to a place where we start unpacking.
I think even the depth gets lost because, from what I'm learning today, which I haven't learned obviously in other conversations with other people, is ukuthi actually your ancestors can take you on physical journeys as well to have you even discover them and who they are, because it's still actually part of your initiation. But also it's like there is differentiation in the work,
Yes.
You don't have to come out as isangoma and do the things that we all do, which I think maybe that's why we needed to have this conversation, because for me, it's like, I always say to people, Guti, it's sad because I'm under the title of Isangoma, but I don't see myself as that. Like, it's actually the one word that I've never wanted to be tied to. So most of the time I'll just say healer. But it's because a lot of the boxes that I've seen created for healers, none of the healers I've ever met fit the box.
Okay, I get
So it's like, even in how you explain your dreams, right? There's no other healer that I'll sit with who was guided in the same way as you, And so we group this one thing under a banner, but all of the individual people in it sort of experience it so differently. So it's almost like, I always joke, Ukutifana now, when we all went to high school and then we came out, and then when it was time to go to varsity, we all get given different careers and different titles in that career, but based on the focus or based on the energy and the input that we put into it. And so this one becomes a doctor, this one becomes a musician, this one becomes this. But I think the issue then is when you come out, everyone expects the same output from this school, but they don't expect the same output from other schools. And it just baffles me, So even, I think yesterday I had a very interesting consultation, and that's where I started realizing that when maybe different, I can sit with people and tell them who they are, like where they come from and who their forefathers are. And this is the reason that they are who they are today.
Yes.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
But I noticed that not everybody does that. Not everyone can sit in a session with someone and explain to them, Guti, no, when now you are doing farming, for example, because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so this is not a mistake, because it's actually like I tap into past lives and sometimes tell people things about who they are. And then I have to say, okay, go do your homework. Yeah, find these things out yourself, because I've given you maybe the lead, And so I think some people, when they come to me because they expect something else, they could then be completely disappointed, But they don't know, Guti, because we are all so different. The things that you could go to Nomi for are different to what you'd go to Mkhulu Nyoni
because
for.
you have a gynae, you can have a pediatrician, you can have this within ubungoma. It's not necessarily that when you go to this person. And that's why even as abangoma, we must understand that if someone comes to you about a certain issue. There's nothing wrong
with
if you
referring
are,
as
yes, more
yes.
especially if I'm not a pediatrician.
Yes.
I don't deal with kids, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, but it's that thing where we've just been boxed into one thing and we're not allowed to then
I'm
show.
realizing it. The more I have these conversations, I'm like, you guys, there is so much more out there, like so much to know actually as well about this and this path as a whole. But I think obviously it takes time and space and a little bit of also you going inward, you know, because I was trying to explain sight to someone else yesterday and I was like, you know how you look at the bones. I don't do that. I go into my body and then I follow the voice inside me. And I just saw him stare at me, but I was trying to say, Ruti, like for you to hear the voices of your forefathers, you sort of have to continue going inward and listen more to that, to what is like the outer. And I think we struggle a lot with that because obviously Silaim Shabeni and there's so many other things that happen. So you choose to sometimes listen to the outer, but utoluguti, the inner, as you listen to it and it gets louder, is really what is propelling you to whatever it is that you need to do, you know?
It's harder to listen to the inner.
Yeah, it's always harder. So I think I've got two more questions, right? So I don't know, you'll decide how to answer them, right? So the one question is then, as a spiritually gifted person, how has it been for you now navigating more your relationship with your partner and your marriage, knowing who you are now? Because normally a lot of people, they will say to me, but I'm not even married yet, you know? And I'm like, what do you mean? Your partner hasn't even met you. You haven't even met you. Ungagabi, a healer. So, like, why are you in a rush?
Yes.
You know, so I just want to know that. And then the last question would be just advise them to someone who is going through the spiritual journey. And I think obviously you went through it and you were a bit older than me even. Like, what is the difference for you in that you were given that time at least to be a little bit older? Or do you think you're fine?
Okay, so the first question was that of marriage and how now you are relating now that you... Okay, so with me, it was actually quite interesting because when I found out I had to go and initiate, it came as a shock, right? Because mind you, I don't have any reference of a traditional healer and I don't know. So then this is me now literally bawling my eyes out. And because it was simply out of fear of not knowing, you know. And I think I was lucky enough to have a husband where, you know, he comes from a family where they've had healers. So it's something that he understands. And I do believe that God actually, you know, they bring you someone that is there to mirror you and to also understand you. And sometimes even take you on the journey, you know, or journeys that you wouldn't have otherwise walked, you know. So I think for me, my husband was very instrumental in that. He was like encouraging it. And I remember when I was going through all these things and there was a time where I needed to go in a pain and I was very anxious and I could tell, Guti, my body can't take it anymore. I need to go in. And he'd be like, thokozani, you know? And I'd be like, what do you mean? Do you want me to leave? And he's like, no, I just want you to be who you are and just to accept who you are so that you are able to move forward because right now you're stuck. And I went through initiation, came back. And when I came back, I must say, I was quite worried because then remember, you then now coming back as a new person, as a different person. In as much as people don't think you are different, you know something has changed. You know something has shifted, you know. And I remember having a conversation with my ancestors to be like, this is the person you've brought me. And because you've brought me this person, can this person evolve with me?
Yes. And that's an important conversation.
Yes. And, you know, I was like, can this person evolve with me? And I think I even started when I was initiating, like, can this person just evolve with me so that we are able to meet each other where we are? Because one, I've always known that if there's one thing that you can never force onto someone is them evolving or them, you know, getting to the next phase of who they're supposed to be. So my thing was that, okay, here I am, I'm evolving. I'm not to say that he's not evolving, but maybe in this journey, he needs to meet me where he needs to meet me so that we can understand each other. And I think I was lucky enough where, as time went on, we did find our rhythm, our dance somewhere. So I'm actually happy. And I think at first I'd be like, oh, okay, so why didn't I find out about my gift also before I got married? Because then now, it seems complicated because then, this other thing.
Yeah.
If you remember with my homecoming, I needed to start at my grandmother's house before I could even come here.
And I think also the complexities of having to tell someone you've been with all your life that this is now a new me, and now you have to marry the new me too. So it's like,
no, this is already. What am I still doing? But look, I mean, luckily with me, like I said, my husband comes from a family where there's been healing.
Yes.
And I think even my in-laws were amazing when it came to that, because I think they understood what needed to be done.
Yeah.
So I think the support from everyone, the support from my mother, the support from his family, my in-laws, the support from him and everyone, everything just came together.
Yeah. Sure, I'm getting emotional just listening to that, because I'm like, I think people don't know. Like, I think I struggled even with that routine. Just meeting someone and being able to tell them that, by the way, I'm a healer. So, there's this whole chapter in a book that you need to do before we even get to like a next level, And I think that's why I always ask these questions, because I'm more a person who I like to research something before I get myself deep in. But it's like, I also understand how hard it is being with a gifted person, because that person we have that day unaramut, and you don't understand like what's happening. Or like with me, I would just, when my partner gets there, is your back sore? Oh my gosh, my back is so sore. Why did you have to come and see me? Because I didn't need a sore back. And it's like, actually, to someone else, this is like, why is this person like this? They pick up on energy like so badly or so differently. And I think it's just a thing that I want people also to know, though, that just because you're a spiritual healer, it doesn't mean love is not for you, And so a lot of the healers who are married, I do ask them these questions so that just because now I'm a healer, I'm not going to get married, or I'm not going to be happy. I think it's something that we all need to learn. There is like love in the African sphere, or
of course,
in the African world, I think even just meeting our Gobela, and I like saying my Gobela, but
our
Gobela, it's very interesting, because for me, at her age, she was the first sort of healer I had met who had been married but been in love the whole time that I knew her. So she introduced, people in my family are married, but the longevity of it is not something I had seen, And when I met her, I thought, oh my gosh, this is
such a beautiful story.
Yes. And because she was a traditional healer, I've always wondered, how do people navigate this, But I think now she was already married when, she had to initiate and whatever. But I hope people know that when I ask these questions, it's really because I want people to know, even African people do have love. And I think we do need to learn, maybe ours is a little bit different because it's got its ancestral complexities. But it doesn't mean, it's wrong or that it's not for us. And that there are families who will accept you as a healer, unjalo, like 100%, and not have an issue with that aspect, So I ask that for the masses. If someone is listening, then they know this can't be like a barrier to my growth as well, But just give us the advice here, Koge, Gogo, Mkhulu.
Oh, okay. Advice, cheapers. I think I will just speak based on my journey and what I've been through. What's important is just to be you, to be authentic in everything that you do, and not to try to be something that you are not or someone that you are not. Because I think there is great wisdom in just being you, because through being you, you are then activating the people that are supposed to come forth and show you what you need to do. So yeah, I would say to people, just listen. And also with Amadluzi, guys, it's a two-way thing. It's not just them telling you what to do. And I think it's high time that we realize as African people that our ancestors have, you know, they want to see us flourish.
Yes, they do.
They have, you know, they just want to see us flourish. And a lot of the time, I think the narrative that's been pushed is the fact that if you don't do this, and then now, you know, sometimes it's as easy as just creating that channel of communication. You know, it's just as easy as also just teaching your kids your ways. Because we also forget that there's a difference between isintu no ubungoma.
Yes.
Isintu no ubungoma is not one thing.
I was having this conversation yesterday as well.
Yeah, so it's not one thing. And I think we just need to understand that some of the things that need fixing or whatever isn't as a scene to foot. It's just that by the time you come to me as Isangoma, I'm just telling you what needs to happen because your people are coming.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily also mean that I have to do those rituals for you.
Yes. It's about ownership as with people, that they need to take ownership of their history and whatever.
Of their history and their thing. And my biggest thing as a healer also as part of this advice is that when I work with a person, I want a person to heal themselves. And as much as I say I'm a healer, I don't like people to be dependent. So as a person now, you must do the work. So if you come as a gifted person and you've got this thing, you are the one that's supposed to tell me I'm gifted and this is what I'm seeing. And I'm only supposed to be confirming. So listen to yourselves. Don't rely on other people to tell you about your family history. Don't rely on me to tell you about your tradition and the ways of which your people do things. You know?
And research, which I think people are very lazy to do. Because the easiest thing for someone to say is, in my family, this thing is not done. And it's like, yeah, but you can be the first one to figure out how it's done.
Maybe Mandulo, it was done, but the generations that you know that you've come into contact with in the physical, they haven't done it because remember, it got lost in translation and Witchcraft Act and blah, 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 whatever. So it's just about knowing you, understanding yourself. A simple thing like even Mosholu Muntu, and you find that they don't even know their mother's side of the family. But just having a surname and just knowing Itarazelo, that surname, and this is, you know, you can find out a lot. So I think it's just about listening to yourself and just understanding who you are and understanding your power as a person. And that you can only do from looking at Pumagu.
Yeah, that's true.
And Uzenayo, just so that, you know, you are able to then understand where you are.
Very interesting. I think that was good advice. And then I asked the backing question, Guti, do you think it was simpler being a little bit older, or do you think it's just the same?
I do think that for me, look, I mean, that's actually, I don't think that it was simple being a bit older, but at the same time, I don't actually ever think that for younger people it's simple because you deal with different things at different phases of your life. For me, I think the biggest challenge was leaving my house, leaving my son, who was also very young.
Running.
Yes, I mean, at the time he was 8, I was leaving my husband, I didn't know how long I'm going for. So someone else would look at that and be like, I wish I had initiated when I was younger. But when you're younger, some people are dealing with school issues. You know, you cannot, you have to go to initiation, but you have to finish school. And also with the curriculum and the way that things are structured, it doesn't allow for umuntu ahambe ayo twasa and then only come back. So I think for me, I'm just happy that my journey is rolling out the way that it's rolling out because I feel we all have different ways of working and our people have different ways of working. And there's a reason why I twasad when I twasad.
There is, definitely. I think there is. Okay, no, Gogo, thank you so much for the seating. I think today was very, very interesting. And I think there's definitely people who needed to hear the messages that we discussed today. So thank you. Thokozani. Thokozani.